Hi there, and welcome to today's Cuppa and Chat session, films Cuppa and Chat session, which is about preparing for your child's heart surgery. My name's Rachel. I work as a Tiny Tickers peer support facilitator to run the groups on Tuesday evenings. And we've also got Louise and Summer from Tiny Tickers, so I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Do you want to go first,
Um,
Louise?
so my name's Louise. I'm the communications officer at Tiny Tickers, and I've got a daughter who's 3 year old, and she has transition of the great arteries.
Cool. I am Summer. I am a project support officer at Tiny Tickers, and I have a little boy, Jackson, who is 3, and he was born with a VSD, a right aortic arch, and vascular ring.
So, we've got two experts here who have been through probably a parallel journey to a lot of people who are watching this video now, or your child is preparing for surgery. But what we thought would be really helpful would be to speak to Louise and Summer, and get their feedback about what was helpful, maybe things that were unhelpful, and just anything kind of top tips or anything that will help contain you in either the build up to your child's heart surgery or if you're on the ward now and going through it and watching this video. So we thought a really kind of key question to start off with would be when preparing for your child's heart surgery, what were your worries and concerns? So I'll open it up to you guys if you've got anything that kind of springs to mind when we think about your main worries in the build up to heart surgery.
I think my main concern was, like, how am I going to actually say goodbye? Like, how am I going to hand her over? I remember that being a huge worry because obviously that's something that no parent should ever have to go through, and it's one of the hardest things that, as a heart parent, you'll have to do if your child goes through surgery. And just thinking, how long is it going to be until I get that phone call as well? Because, minutes feel like hours when you're in that situation and you're waiting to hear how your child's surgery goes. So that was my main concerns really. And just, yeah, how is it going to go? Obviously, that's the biggest concern. You want it to go as well as possible.
Yeah, yeah, really understandably. And you're right when you say about the minutes feeling like hours. It's kind of where to put yourself, where what to do, where to go, and we can
Yeah.
talk about that at the end. But yeah, it's a really understandable fear to have. Yeah, how about for you, Summer?
Yeah, I think similar. Like obviously, the main worry was just, is he going to be okay? And is there going to be anything else that comes up while he's there? I think we had a bit of, like a lot of people do, chopping and changing and stuff was kind of what was going to happen, and some things were better than others, and kind of what I don't know, going in was a bit like, oh, what if they find that something's not how it should be, or things not going as smoothly as possible. Obviously that's the main worry, and then there is like the practical worries as well. Like for us, silly things that you think, they're not silly, you think they're silly, but obviously they're not. Of after his surgery, where are we gonna be? Like, obviously, I would stay with him at the hospital, but obviously, when he's in intensive care, then we can't. And then where will we stay? Like, we need the accommodation from the hospital and that, which most offer. So that's great. But even that, like going into the hospital, we didn't know where that was, if we'd have a room, like it because it's all very much obviously case by case and priorities and things like that. Obviously, we were lucky enough it was fine, and the hospital were very much like, of course you'll have somewhere to stay, like it's fine, but you don't know that before, and I think that even things like that you do play on your mind a lot.
Yeah, you've both hit on something there, and it's something that's reflected in the peer support groups for parents of under twos and over twos that come for that peer support. But there's sort of two levels or layers of kind of worries and concerns. The first are those practical things, just like you said, Summer, like where to park, how long will it take me to get to the hospital, what time do we need to be there? We were saying actually, weren't we, before this call, that sometimes those things click into place just as you get your surgery date. So if it's been that your cardiologist or the surgeon has said you'll need your baby or your child will need surgery in 6 months' time. Sometimes all these worries come to the fore, and actually they're all sorted for you. Those kind of, I know you call them silly, and they might feel silly, but you're absolutely right. They're yeah, like how are we going to get there? How long will the surgery be? Those practical questions and answers. And then there's that sort of bigger layer and overriding concern, and you touched on Louise. Will Emmy be okay? It's a long time. What's going on? And yeah, the concern about something happening that's yeah out of your control. But that's overwhelming, isn't it? To have be burdened by all those worries and thoughts and concerns. And um, I was going to ask if you guys found that you were exhausted or tired in that build up to your children's surgery. Did you feel the overwhelm of everything?
He was 6 days old, so I'd only just given birth. So I sort of felt like I was in a big, tired, worried blur during that
Yeah.
time. And we found out about her surgery. Her surgery was brought forward. So there was obviously like a space for her in that time. And thankfully, she was born at a healthy weight and she was doing well. So it was a big shock. And yeah, I definitely felt very like emotionally drained during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, really
Yeah. So we
understandable.
had longer because we always knew Jackson would need surgery, but he didn't have it till he was just a month after his first birthday. So in a way, we had a lot of time to prepare. So I guess by the time it came round, I think it almost never felt real because we'd kind of been emotionally tired and stuff for a year, really thinking and waiting for it. So in a different way, really, I guess probably less so because we've had all that time to prepare, but then you still you still don't stop thinking about it, do you anyway?
A key question really is how do you prepare when you know you've got, you're diagnosed when you're pregnant with your baby and you're told that your baby will need surgery. How do you, a year, 12 months of waiting and waiting and yeah, build up. How did you cope with that summer?
Yeah, do you know what? It's funny. I really find it hard to remember any of it now.
Yeah.
I think we were really conscious of like shielding him before his surgery away from
Mm.
people so that he obviously didn't get poorly or anything like that. I think for us, it was so much like he had to get to a healthy weight to have his surgery. So for that whole year, really, it was just a case of trying to get him to that weight. So I think almost that probably took away from a lot of the preparation because that was really what we kind of focused on, the fact that he needed to be well enough to have his surgery. So I don't know really. I think we did, like I say, we really shielded him from people. And then his surgery kind of got changed to what he was going to have and when it was going to be. So then I think by the time it actually then came round, I'd got actually a bit more relaxed about things because I don't know, I'd realized that he was then that bit older. He was that bit heavier and healthier, and I knew that he would be okay. I don't know really. It's so it's so hard to remember. I know it's not even that long
Yeah,
ago, but it feels like a
yeah,
lifetime ago now.
yeah. And that shows like it's almost compartmentalized, isn't it? That was then, we move on. And I think there's something about parenting children anyway. You're at such a fast pace when they're developing that, yeah, what they did 2 weeks ago, sometimes you can't remember. So yeah, I really appreciate some of it will have numbed off naturally because you were feeling kind of overwhelmed by it all. But yeah, it's understandable that you can't retain it all. But yeah, it's a really long build up. And again, in on the peer support calls that Tiny Tickers provide, that's another theme is kind of people feeling, yeah, like I think sometimes people share that it's almost easy when they see some signs of deterioration, and that can be really hard to see your child struggling with breathing and energy levels or saturations and things like that. But sometimes it means that you're quite ready or desperate for that surgery to take place. And I think some families find it really difficult when their baby or their child looks well, and it's a preventative surgery. So it's kind of handing your child over when they're quite, their energy levels are already good and things like that. But it sounded like with Jackson, you were sort of ready and you just knew that that was the
Yeah.
right time.
Yeah, definitely. And he was well, to be fair. There wasn't really any
Yeah.
signs of deterioration as such. But I
Mm,
think, do you know, thinking back now, I think there was an appointment that we had with his like local cardiologist not that long before his surgery. And I remember her being like, yeah, he really needs this done. And I guess that's probably actually what made us feel like, okay, now we're
yeah.
ready. And that's probably the point, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, her saying that because she can see
Yeah.
inside, she knows what's going on. Like I say, from the
Yeah.
outside, he was well. So, but I
Yeah.
think somebody telling you that, you're like, oh, okay. This is
Yeah. Yeah. It's time. Yeah.
yeah.
And I was thinking for you, Louise, it sounded like it was more out of your hands. There was just very much you gave birth, and then that was the, plan that Emmy was taken when she was 6 days old for her first surgery.
Yeah, and in a way, I feel like for me that felt better because it was just I wanted her to have it done because I knew that was the only way that she was going to get better. Never totally better, obviously, but get better and get home was to have that surgery. So I felt like the sooner we could get that ball rolling, the sooner we'd be over the worst bit, and then we could focus on life after surgery and getting her home and recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so again, you were ready. You were well as ready as you could be in that sort of postpartum haze, but yeah, just to progress her to get her home.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the key question is for both of you, and you might have really different responses, or again, it might be really hard to remember, and that's really understandable. But um, how did you prepare? Like, what did it look like, or what was helpful to you? What did you kind of prepare and you think, "Oh, I've wasted hours preparing for something or worries that I didn't need to think about?" What were your experiences? If we start with you, Louise, is that okay?
Yeah, of course. So I had a really long time to prepare because I found out when I was 13 weeks pregnant. So I felt like I had that advantage almost because I wanted to know all the ins and outs, all the information. So I found out about tiny tickers during that appointment. And the the lady that was there, she said to me, if you go on Tiny Ticker's website, you can read their stories. And they've got about, I think, 60 TGA stories on their website. So I read through like every single story. Um, and that really helped prepare me because you feel like when you find out, you feel like you may be the only person. You're not, but I didn't know anyone that had a child with TGA. So it was very new to me, and you hear all the medical jargon, but you want to hear, okay, what's it actually like for families that are going through this. So I read the stories. I spoke to other heart parents. Obviously, we've got the Tiny Tickers parent group on Facebook, as well as the virtual sessions, which are all really, really helpful. So just hearing from people that have been through it, they've gone through what I was about to go through. Obviously, everyone has different experiences, but just speaking to different people and hearing it firsthand was really helpful. I also listened to a podcast on it. And I remember there was a lady that I was in regular contact with whose son had TGA as well. And she was giving birth, I think, about a month before I had Emmy at the same hospital where I was going to have Emmy. So I got to, sort of see her experiences of it, and see what a child looked like, because I feel like there's a big difference from NICU to PICU. So NICU is a very calm, quiet, dark, peaceful place. Obviously, you have very poorly babies there, but it's very different to PICU and what they look like after surgery. They're very puffy. There's lots of machines. There's lots of wires. It's a big rush, lots of beeping. It's just like a sense explosion almost. And you're extremely emotional, having just waited all those hours for your child to go through surgery, then to see them in such a bad way. So even though it was really hard to see those pictures and hear about what it was like, I feel like actually it was great in a preparing point of view, because it's such a drastic difference from NICU to PICU.
Yeah, it's a really good observation, actually. Did you get to see the neonatal intensive care unit before you had Emmy? Were you able to have a tour or a look round?
So they had this video online. I think because it was still a couple of years after COVID, so usually before you was able to go and look around the hospital. But I mean, I'm not complaining because it was great just to sit down in our own time and see what it was like. So that was really helpful, definitely.
Yeah, and the same for pediatric intensive care. Was that an option? I know sometimes there are restrictions on people visiting whose children aren't there, but were you able to have a look or watch a video?
Yes, so they sent us a video link, and I was able to look on there as well. Obviously,
Yeah,
I don't think it fully prepares you, but it's, you can sort of see roughly what it's going to
yeah,
be like.
yeah. I think sometimes these things trigger more questions, don't they? Because you're thinking, well, what does that machine do, and what does that piece of equipment do? And actually, when you're there and working in a hospital myself on NICU and PICU, you see the nurses explain everything really, really clearly to parents. And sometimes it feels like it's a case of timing, isn't it? Sometimes you don't need to know what every kind of line in and line out means, and it's better explained when you're there and you're able to retain that information. But yeah, I think it's just something to be aware of, isn't it? That these videos are brilliant, aren't they? And they kind of orientate you to the surroundings that your little one's going to be in. But sometimes it can trigger a lot more questions and sometimes more concerns as well. Um, but yeah, thank you. I mean, you're right about the time, that sort of big chunk through your pregnancy and ability to read, go on tiny tickers, link in with other families, that lovely peer support. It sounded like it was helpful and it calmed you a little bit, would you say?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
when I was awake at night worrying, I would just go on and read through the stories.
yeah, yeah. and knowing people get through and I think to reduce that isolation as well, because you said something about I felt like I was the only person or none of my friends had gone through this and family hadn't. So it can feel really isolating, can't it, when it's happening to your family and your child. So yeah, I'm really glad that you reached out and were able to get some support through Tiny Tickers. Yeah. Thanks, Louise. Thank you. How about for you, Summer, in terms of preparing for Jackson? You had a long time, a really long time.
Yeah, similar to be fair. I think more for me, it was more preparing on the medical side of things rather than the emotional support. I think
Yeah,
I just wanted to know everything that was going to happen in the surgery. And we had a video call with the surgeon, like however long before, and he just spoke us through like everything that was going to happen and diagrams and things like that. And that all really helped me prepare. I think I needed to see specifically what they were going to do. Um,
yeah,
I think probably didn't really reach out for emotional support like you did, Louise, which in hindsight probably should have, but I didn't feel I don't know, I had a lot of support around me, so I don't feel like I kind of needed it as much at the time. But I did use tiny tickers because somebody had told me about them like when I was pregnant. Um I so Jackson's one was that his VSD, we were unsure if he was going to need to have that repaired or not. He ended up not having it done. Um and I actually struggled to find a lot more information on like his right aortic arch and vascular ring. So I found the Tiny Ticker's Facebook group quite helpful. We would search on there. I think I might have posted a couple of times, but mainly just searched on there for that and then could read a bit about other people's experiences. Because yeah, I definitely found it hard to find as much information on it. Um, but that's why I think it was so important to me, like the call with the surgeon and asking questions that I needed to kind of find out everything from
yeah,
there. Um,
yeah,
so again, it was just really gathering information for a year, just trying to
yeah,
find out as much as I could, and more finding out about how it's going to look for him in his life,
mm,
and
mm,
all that kind of stuff. Really, I wanted to know all of that sort of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
It's I was going to say really practical and pragmatic to do that. It's like can feel like a messy jigsaw, can't it? Well, he's going to have surgery, but when and what's it going to look like, and so many confusing parts. But that
Yeah.
was really, really good that you were able to have the opportunity to meet with the surgeon, and every family whose child is being operated on will have that opportunity. So it's holding on to that as well. If it's been mentioned that your child will need surgery, know that when it's your child's time to come in to hospital for that, there'll be lots of people that will want to speak to you and meet you either face to face or online and talk to you about your child's surgery. So there's your opportunity, isn't it, to do exactly what you did and ask those questions and start to kind of click those missing bits of the puzzle into place to give you a bit of a clearer picture. Um, did you feel reassured after speaking to the surgeon, or did it bring up
Mm.
more
No,
sort of
I
questions?
definitely felt reassured. I think it was really
Yeah,
good. I think it's quite good, like you said, you will meet people, and it's good
yeah,
to have a person that you know
yeah,
like, oh, actually, you're great and you know what you're
yeah,
doing. And I feel safe, like, in like knowing that you're going to be looking after him. I think
yeah,
that helps a lot as well. I think
yeah,
we just thinking back as well, we didn't have anything like any tours or anything like that, like you just said, but we had been to the hospital before. So actually, a few months before Jackson's surgery, he had to have can't remember what it was now. Oh, a bronchoscopy, like a camera down his throat,
yeah,
to check things. So actually, we had already been to the ward where he would then be and things like that. Obviously, we didn't go to the like PICU or anything like that time. And I don't remember being offered a video or anything like that, but maybe we were. I just don't remember. But yeah, we had already been there. And actually, just thinking back, that's one thing. I guess in a way, it's not lucky, but we'd had that. So he'd had to have anesthetic and we'd had to kind of see, because that bit is really horrible. And I think you don't know about that before, really. No one can kind of prepare you for it. But like having, like you said earlier, Louise, having to say goodbye to your child, we'd done that. And obviously it wasn't surgery or anything, but we'd kind of been through that experience. So we knew what to expect, which I know is not likely that most people are going to have that, but even I suppose even if you could just do a bit of research on that to know what to expect in that moment, because that's quite scary, really, if I'm honest. Um, but then, like say, we'd that prepared us because we'd seen that bit before. We knew then when we went in for surgery, okay, that's going to happen again. But
yeah,
yeah, like I say, it's not always no everyone's going to have that. But I do think if I hadn't have, it would have been good to do
yeah.
to find out all about that as well, you know.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes important to name your concerns with the team as well. I think
Mm.
people feel a bit afraid to share with the surgeon or the clinical nurse specialist or the sort of anaesthetist any worries or concerns that you have. But I think when you name them, then they can come to you with a bit more of a plan. And you're right, handing your child over is one of parents' biggest kind of that I hear through the groups and through working in the hospital, the biggest sort of thing that's going to be hard. But there are ways to make that a bit easier. So I know anaesthetists sometimes say, "Would you like to climb on the bed and you can be wheeled down together?" I know sometimes there's pre-med options, so medication to make little one a bit sleepy, so you're handing them over asleep, and there's not a sort of a separation from them where they're crying or distressed in any way. So it's kind of working together as a team. You guys know your child better than anybody. So it's sometimes naming the bits that you're worried about and seeing what can be done to make that transition into the operating theatre a bit smoother.
Mm.
Um,
I think a lot of that depends on like the age of your child and stuff, not just specifically
yeah,
with that, but so many, like you say, of these things to raise your concerns will be so different to a
yeah,
6-day-old baby to a 1-year-old to a 4-year-old.
yeah,
There's going to be different worries and concerns for different things at those
absolutely.
ages, I suppose, isn't there? So again, like you said, talking to people at the hospital and asking these questions,
Yeah.
that can help a lot, I think.
Yeah. And it's remembering they're doing it every single day. And just one person saying, would it help that we gave them a sleepy medicine so they're kind of asleep in your arms when we go down? Yeah, that does settle a lot of families. Would it really help if they walk down, if they're a bit of an older child and they want that bit more control and we show them what's in the theatre and we kind of orientate them to what's going on and yeah. And I think what's lovely now in hospitals is they are child led. I think, 20 years ago, it was very much like this is what we do, whereas now to give children who are verbal and can say what they'd like, we give them that control back. So it's asking, how would you like this done? Would you like a mask over your face or would you like a cannula? How, do you want to wear your nightie or do you want to wear your pajamas? And there's loads of things that they can have to have a bit of choice. But you're absolutely right, Summer. Depends so much, doesn't it, on the age and the developmental stage of the child in terms of preparation. And I think that's what's making this such a big topic for discussion because, yeah, so different. I was thinking for you, Louise, handing over your little one at 6 days old, who she would have been probably very, very sleepy at that stage, wouldn't she? And um, yeah, but the hard bit was for you there that you was, dealing with the emotions of handing her over. Um, but yeah, it's just being honest. I think being honest and open with the team is probably a really key point, isn't it? There's no such thing as a stupid question. You're not the first, you're not the last parent to say, I'm really nervous about this and I'm really scared. And let the team lead you and they've always got ways that they can support families. So um yeah, some good points that you raised. Thank you both. One key thing I was going to ask is how I suppose this is maybe applicable for Jackson's surgery summer, but how did you prepare on that day? Like where did you go? And I remember Louise saying the minutes felt like hours, and yeah, tell us a little bit about how you coped on the
Yeah,
actual
so
day.
I remember again thinking like, what are we going to do for that time? Because his wasn't like open heart, it was like through the side. It was a bit shorter than typical, but it was still, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. It's still a long time. And I remember
Yeah,
that again was one of those ones thinking, oh my gosh, like what are we going to do? Like we're just going to be sitting there going crazy for a few hours. Um, we were very fortunate in that we were in the middle of London. So there's a lot to do. We actually, I remember like sort of dropping off and saying, oh, let's go and get some food or whatever. And saying to my partner, like, well, what are we going to do? And to be fair, very lucky, he was brilliant. He was on his phone and within 5 minutes was like, we're going to the Natural History Museum. It's just 10-minute walk. And we just distracted ourselves basically. We got a couple of things for Jackson from the gift shop while we were there. And yeah, at the time we managed to fill the time quite easily, which was lucky. Obviously, no, that's not always the case for everybody. And it's different for everyone. I think for some people, they might not want to leave the hospital. Some people won't be allowed to leave the hospital, but some people might not want to. And you might want to just stay close. I mean, we weren't far anyway where we were, but yeah, I think it's just different for again, it's different for everyone. But for
yeah,
us, I think distraction was
yeah,
good. He was constantly in our minds, obviously, but
yeah, yeah,
we were just trying to distract ourselves as much as possible. So yeah, that worked
yeah.
for us.
Yeah, I think that's really good. You mentioned being outside. I think we always sort of recommend some fresh air because
Yeah.
I think it's okay if you want to sit outside the hospital at the theatre doors and wait, but just yeah, make sure get some fresh air a little bit of movement, so you're not sort of sitting, and something to eat and drink. And I think it's really hard, isn't it, to stomach something when you do feel so churned up and nervous, but a sugary drink or energy drink or just sugar in your tea or something to kind of pick you up a little bit. Yeah, because it is a long time, like you say, whether it's 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, it's a really long wait. Um, I was thinking for you, Louise, were you an impatient yourself after having Emmy, or were you, what did you do when Emmy went down for her surgery?
So we were staying at the in Ronald McDonald accommodation, which was down the road. And I remember having spoken to, families that have been through it. They all said distraction is key. So, just like Summer, because it's, waiting around in the hospital, it's going to feel like the day's going on and on and on. So we went back to our place at Ronald McDonald, and I took my laptop with me. So I put on Friends, like the comedy series Friends. It was just like something that was comforting that I've watched since I was a child. So it could just be on in the background, because obviously you don't really have that focus to focus on a new program. You just want something that provides you comfort. And I did a lot of journaling when Emmy was at the hospital as well. So I wrote in a book to her every day so that she can read it when she's older. So I remember writing in there, I've just handed you over, you've gone down for surgery now. I will update you when I come back, like I was messaging a friend, or, it's a bit crazy. But I found that really helped. We were really lucky. So on the actual surgery day, we met our friends who just so happened to be at the hospital at the same time. And they've been through what it's like to have a long hospital stay with a baby, and their little one had been through surgery as well. So it was nice just to be able to talk to someone on the day that was understanding. And we also spoke about just normal stuff, which was a good distraction. Obviously, she was on our minds constantly, but just being able to speak about normal things as well, I thought was really beneficial. And of course, we were waiting around for that phone call, and it does feel like forever. And at one point, the phone began to ring, and we're like holding our breaths, and it was B&Q delivering our door, which was just so. My husband just said to them, "I'm really sorry, our daughter's in surgery. I can't talk. I've got to get off the phone," because we were just like, phone was out the entire time. But yeah, that was just really helpful. I think just do what you feel is comforting for you, whether that's being around people or being by yourself, getting out for a walk, anything that you find comforting.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Really good advice. Yeah, it's sometimes nice to make a bit of a plan, and if it goes out the window, doesn't matter. But like you say, look for nearest cafe or look for a little walk, or some hospitals have gardens, don't they? Or roof gardens, find somewhere you can get some fresh air but still be close. But yeah, really, really good ideas. Um, did either of you have a cancellation? Did you have to deal with Jackson or Emmy's surgery being postponed or cancelled?
Not as such, no. Ours was just more, it wasn't like penciled in for a set date, but originally it was like this is going to happen in, I think it was November. Um, full open heart surgery to fix everything. But then because his condition changed in the meantime, it then got moved back a few months. So I suppose not officially, but kind of. So had to learn to be flexible with it, basically, I think was our
Yeah.
key takeaway from that. Because things can change so much. Obviously, in some cases, what's going to happen is going to happen. But because his one was so sort of things could change, and they did. We were lucky his VSD started to close up a bit, so then they wanted to monitor it with his medication and bring him off his medication and see kind of from there. So it was, yeah, a bit of chopping and changing, but not like an official. We didn't have a date booked in, and then it got cancelled, luckily.
Yeah. Thanks, Summer. How about for you, Louise? Anything was Emmy postponed or delayed?
So we were told, like when I was pregnant, that Emmy would probably have surgery around 2 weeks old. But I think because we were lucky and she was born at quite a good weight, even though she was born early, and so that's always like a good factor. And because they obviously had the time free as well, because sometimes obviously you do get like the emergencies come through. So it was sprung on us the day before, and they said, tomorrow she's going to be having her surgery. She'll be moving wards tonight to get her prepared. Obviously that day I was a mess, and it was a very, very wobbly day. But actually, I think that it was a positive thing for me because it was sprung on me, and then I could just, get over the worst bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard, that lack of control, isn't it, that both of you have experienced. And I think we've had a previous cuppa and a chat about that exact topic, dealing with worries and fears when you're not in control of things. You're so much in their hands, aren't you? The medical team's hands. And I think it's holding on to knowing that there's a really, really big team around your child, and they meet every day and they're talking about, when's the right time for that child, and they're scheduling the surgery slots, and they're making sure that everybody's trying to line up and get their surgery slot when they need it. And sometimes, like you say, it's an urgent case that comes in, and that's what sort of shuffles everybody along. It can be really, really hard to deal with. And I think if you have got an older child who you've been preparing, through books and stories and role play, talking to them about their surgery, acting things out, drawing pictures, you maybe done a dress rehearsal where you've gone and visited the hospital and you're saying you're having you're having your operation tomorrow. It's really hard when there's a cancellation, or a postpone, or it's postponed there. And I think my advice working in the hospital is, treat it as more preparation. We did a really good practice there, or, and it's really hard. I think older children do pick up on our thoughts and fears, don't they? So sometimes when we're frustrated with the hospital, or we're upset about that, they can really see that and pick up on that. And it's natural to have those feelings, but it's sometimes protecting your child a little bit and praising that they've come in, praising that they've had a go at, fasting or trying something, some of the steps. But yeah, it's really, really hard. And I think that's where support really comes in. Places like Tiny Tickers, where you can come and speak safely about, oh, I was really fed up actually, or that really frustrated me, or we built up for months and then it was cancelled. So yeah, I guess my top tip there is access to support, because when you've had such a lot of build up and preparation yourself, it can be really disheartening to be told it's not happening. But you will always be given another date. I think it's knowing that, that the team will meet again the next day, and they'll really try and prioritize you if you have been shuffled down a list. But yeah, it's understandable to have a whole range of responses to that. But yeah, do get some support through some, well, like Tiny Tickers and the peer support groups if you can. Um, yeah, yeah. But thank you. I think it's hard not to mention the cancellation, isn't it, with any topic about preparing for heart surgery. I was just thinking as well, something to, I guess, bring it to a close, but with so much experience that you've both gone through with Emmy and with Jackson, I was just thinking, is there anything you would have liked someone to have told you, or something you wish you'd known, something you wish you'd packed in your hospital bag, or just something kind of looking back on the experience and thinking, oh, I could kind of impart that wisdom to other people? Is there anything either of you would like to share with others that you think would have been really helpful during your experiences of surgery?
I think practically, I brought the journal with me, so I knew that I would want to do journaling while she was in hospital, and also I packed a my own breast pump so that I could be next to her. It's one of those ones that's like a hands-free breast pump, because I knew that I want to be with her. And that was really helpful because I felt like going into the pumping room could actually be quite a lonely place, and you're just left alone with your thoughts. And I wanted to be with my husband and with Emmy. So yeah, I felt like that was really helpful in terms of like practical. And then emotionally, I think just tune into what works for you, because obviously everyone's different. You might want family and friends with you. You might not. You might want a normal phone call, but that might be a bit too much for you. So I think just tune into yourself and listen to what works for you.
Good advice. I think it's that flexibility, isn't it, of maybe making a plan, but knowing it's okay if that plan changes. And yeah, and also you never quite know how you're going to feel on that day of your child's surgery. Some people I've worked with in the hospital make lists, and they've got a really clear plan of what they're going to do, and then things just go off a little bit, and it can be really hard when you've done that. But yeah, knowing you're in those safe hands, isn't it, and trusting in the medical team, and yeah, doing anything you can your end to be as prepared, like you said, things that you packed in your bag and things you brought to help you. But equally knowing it's okay to have a plan B as well. Um, yeah, thank you, Louise. How about for you, Summer?
Yeah, I think really similar, to be honest, in that the best advice is just you have to do what's right for you. Whatever you think is the most important in that moment. There's no right or wrong. Like I think, at least say for one person, for Louise, it was the journaling. Like I didn't do that. That, I would want to know all the medical stuff, and I had friends and family sort of on standby and like a group chat to update like immediate family members. And I think like I say, we wanted distraction throughout the surgery time and wanted to get out away from the hospital for a few hours, whereas some people don't want that. I really think there's no right or wrong answer. I think it really is just
Yeah.
you need to do what feels right for you
Yeah.
in that moment, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen to yourself. I mean, people know themselves better than anybody else, don't they? So,
Yeah.
yeah, good advice just to, yeah, and break it down as well. I think if you look at the whole process, it can feel really overwhelming, but break it down to, the night before, try and get an early night, the day of, take everything in your hospital bag that you think might be helpful. And the day, yeah, the moment that the surgery happens, like you say, no right and wrong. You might camp outside the door and no one's going to move you away. That's, you're right to be there. But equally, you might have never kind of thought you might want to go out into town, but we've both said, or we've all said, haven't we, about distraction and the importance of that. So yeah, go with what you feel in the moment. Um, I think it's probably really important to mention parent self-care because we speak so much, don't we, about the children and helping them prepare as much as we can and everything that we pack and pumping milk for them and all that preparation for them. But yeah, it's a big toll, isn't it? And when you were both saying it's hard to kind of remember, we know that the brain kind of sometimes numbs off memories that have been really, really emotional and difficult. So maybe that's why it is so hard to remember those things. But yeah, it's looking after yourself in those moments and where you can, getting some rest. It might not be that you can switch off enough to sleep. That's completely normal and understandable. But if you can lay down for a bit or rest for a little bit, if you get opportunities, sit quietly in a quieter part of the ward or the hospital, talk to your friends. I think, you mentioned both of you about having good support either through your families or through tiny tickers, but just reaching out to people so that you're not on your own with this. Because when things feel overwhelming, it can feel really hard, can't it, when your body's filled with adrenaline and you feel stressed and tense and it's really, really hard to care for and parent a child who's poorly at whilst you're feeling so kind of emotionally burnt out. But yeah, just it's a kind of a message from me about looking after yourself, being a kind of a top tip and in whatever that form that looks like, whatever helps you. But just kind of making sure you don't kind of fall last in the line because actually sometimes what we know is children fly through their surgery, don't they? And particularly little ones, babies and toddlers sort of bounce back really, really quickly. And that's when they need you, when they're awake and alert and maybe wanting to be cuddled and played with. And sometimes parents describe that's when they feel at their most tired, kind of a few days after surgery. But yeah, yeah, good advice from both of you about yourselves so well, look after yourselves and I guess reach out to Tiny Tickers if ever you want some support, be that Facebook or Instagram or the peer support groups. But thank you both so much for sharing your stories about Emmy and Jackson. It's such helpful insights, and you've been there, you've done it, you've got through it, and you're telling your story. And in a way, it's quite nice that not everything's kind of flooding back, images and memories. That it is a bit blurry because that's good. It just shows how quickly you bounce back, with your life and carry on to the next chapter of child development. So yeah, in some ways, really positive. Um, but thank you both so much for sharing your stories. And yeah, we hope this has been helpful to everybody watching. So thank you.